shade, and that's actually the best way to see the fire. You're right, I got some irons in the fire. Nathan, come here. That's where the expression comes from. In everyday life, right, if you got irons in the fire, you got multiple opportunities. And the blacksmith, if he's got irons in the fire, he has an opportunity to make something, provided it's up to temperature, right? So he heats the iron up to about 1500 degrees Fahrenheit when it starts to glow, about the color of the fire itself. So let's pick one out. I'll use some tongs. So, you know, it's very hot now, even though it's not glowing at one end. It's like, you don't want to touch a stove burner either. So let's get this out. No, actually, that's kind of a faint orange. I'm looking for something that's a little hotter than that, but you get the idea. So I'm trying to heat it up. I think I got another one in here that might be a better candidate for doing something. Oh, yeah. So we'll pull that out in a minute. But first, I'll just describe what's in the shop. You've got your forge. It's like a fireplace on steroids. They would burn either coal or charcoal. And then to keep the fire going during the day, they had bellows. So I'll unsheath them here and work them a little bit. And usually they'd have an apprentice to do this. So I'm just pumping air like a bellows, like a hand bellows, right? And just it's more capacity because we've got two of them. And there are a lot of rhythms in the blacksmith shop. You know, the apprentice would just get into a nice rhythm. It's almost like breathing with the fire, really. You want the fire to breathe. So it's going pretty well. And the most well-known tool, if nothing else, just for the sound, is the anvil. Now, my first memory of the anvil was Wile E. Coyote. Remember Roadrunner? Yeah. Wile E. Coyote's always getting hit on the head with his own anvil. So it's a big cast iron piece. It's like an iron workbench. In fact, to your left there, you can see a profile of one there. And that's actually Spanish for blacksmith. You drop the H and you roll the R. It sounds a little like that. And then I have a vise. I have a stone grinder. If I needed to make a sharp knife, I would sharpen it up on that. And I've got different hammers and chisels that I use. I mean, I usually stick with this guy, and then I can use some of the other tools to bend and twist things. But I have little chisels. I have some hammers that have snouts on them, so I can punch holes in hot metal. So let's just make something. That's the best way to learn about it. So let's pretend that there's a woman back in the day who has a pan. Who knows? Maybe I made it for her. But static, like, you know, see the links in the chain? That's a good example of drawing. That's called drawing the metal. And like maybe I was making a sword, I'd have a flat piece that I'd want to broaden. So either lengthen or broaden by drawing the metal. Well, I want to make an S hook instead of a J hook. And I got to strike while the iron's hot. So in this case, bend while the iron's hot. This is cooling off pretty quickly. So let's put it over here. And let's bend it around. Let me get a good grip of the angle there. Bend it around. Yeah. So it could have been a little higher. But now, I can go back to the anvil and complete the bend. Hopefully. But you can see it pulls off pretty quickly, so it's not as much like taffy as it was initially. Yeah, I think that's pretty symmetric. So there you go. So now she'll have a hook. Maybe I can make her another one. That would look more like a kitchen. Okay, so you get the idea. So something simple we made. But we're not quite done. So it's still hot. I mean, I don't want to touch it with my hands. But it gives me an opportunity to rust proof it. So they take beeswax and they drizzle it on the metal. See what happens? It just creates a little seal because rust really plagues iron. You see all the things adorning the door. It's all red. It's rust. I mean, iron in its natural form is black. What happens is when the iron metal is exposed to the atmosphere, the oxygen in the atmosphere actually eats away at the metal. In fact, rust is something called iron oxide. So now I'm putting a little protective barrier between the iron and the atmosphere. And you got to mind your beeswax just for fun. See if I can show you what happens if you don't. Oh, it's good. It's not. Sometimes it bursts right into fire.
How long would that last?
Yeah, not too long. I don't know, probably a few months. And I'm not even sure then you can recoat it, I guess, because you really have to heat it up. I mean, The only reason why it works now is that when it gets hot, it's more porous, and so the beeswax penetrates it, impregnates it, so to speak. And now then the last step is something called the quench. So I want to now officially get it back to room temperature, the hook part that I made there. And as a good thermal conductor, I mean, I always check, but it's right back to room temperature. And I used water to do the quench, but like modern blacksmiths, a lot of people who are making knives and things like that, that you don't want to be brittle if you're striking something. They use oil, and what the oil does is it just slows down the cooling process, and it also, when you stick the piece in for about 10 seconds, there's a protective vapor barrier that forms due to the oil, I guess somehow. I don't know how that works, but it prevents defects. So, but that's blacksmithing 101, right? You have someone in the town who needs something, and it depends on what tools you need, but anvil's pretty critical. I always tell folks, if you're interested, you can get an anvil on Amazon, but then I think about shipping it. But no, you can go Facebook Marketplace or something like that, and then hammers and chisels you can get on Amazon, and then you don't need to have a authentic forge like this. You can get a propane forge. It's like turning on a grill. That's hot enough to get the metal up to temperature. And there's a book called The Art of Blacksmithing, and there is this show called Forged in Fire where you can see modern blacksmiths doing their thing. So, any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Nah. Okay.
Is there anything in the fire?
What about the fire?
Is there anything in the fire?
Oh, yeah. Well, I got to. Let's see what else is in there. There's still some more stuff in there. Let's look at a different size piece. In fact, let me see. Get some bigger tongs, because it's a bigger piece. I have some other tongs over here. Let's see if these work. And again, you can see, blacksmiths here, there's a lot of bends, and now there's a little rivet in here. That's kind of interesting. And then one thing you're realizing is, he made his own tools. Okay, now here, that's pretty nice. We can make a bracket. Let's say we wanted to make a bracket. I can kind of do the same thing I was doing before. Now let's see. I need more of a lever. Let's see if I can move it in. Oop, I'm going to drop it. Pick it up. Now this is often the case. You wonder how best, take advantage of the heat. Now you can see I can pretty easily move it around to get a bracket. So maybe I would use that in something. A lot of bending, twisting. Let's try another thing just for grins. Oh, he's not hot enough. I thought you can get these twists on things. What's a good example of them? Oh, on the stakes. See the twists?
Oh, yeah.
If you so imagine, that untwisted piece going in the vise kind of where this is, then you just get it. It's pretty easy when it's hot and it's soft enough to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun thing. It's not really practice, as a living anymore. I mean, there are farriers, the guys who make horseshoes. Like in Ocala, I think there's probably some farriers in Florida. That's horse. And sometimes I get the kids going with a festus. So it turns out in Greek mythology, Zeus, the great Greek god Zeus, he had a bunch of sons, but one of them was Hephaestus. I just like saying his name. But he was the god of blacksmithing. And his forge was a volcano. So he was making these thunderbolts for Zeus. He needed a big fire. Okay, blacksmiths are cool dudes. All right, so let's go do something more fun. So follow me. Having a good time? Thank you. You're welcome. Bueno. Adios. Adios.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's pretty good. Where is it? Oh, yeah, no, it was one day. How big? Oh, pretty big. So where else are you? Over here? Oh, you go take a picture there. Did you have it over there? So here you see, I mean, it's good to kick in the shape, but you get a good view of the ship. So I always like to do a little riff on how the ship was put together, how it's built. So you can see in the bow this big piece of oak that sweeps up, and then it goes all the way to the aft along the bottom. That's the keel of a ship, and that's the first thing they put down when they build it. And so think of it like the human body. So it's like a spine, except you don't want curvature spine. But then bad joke. All right, now then you see that perpendicular to the keel, there are these like sandwiches of wood that go across, and they're called frames. And so I compare them to ribs. Right? It kind of makes sense. So now you got the spine, you got the ribs, and then the planks are basically your skin. So once the structure's on there, and you can see it needs more planks, and we leave it incomplete. And you do have to seal it ultimately with pine tar, so it's waterproof. But it was like anything; it took time and money. That's about 35 feet long, 15 feet wide. I think I mentioned it'll hold about 20 people, hold about 60 tons of cargo, and you have to mortgage whatever the capacity is, so the weight of the people, the weight of what keeps them alive, and then what's that?
30 people?
20.
Oh, 20.
More like 20, yeah. I know it's kind of realistic, because this is funny, because in Halloween, there's a big exhibit in here. We actually have a little ghost tour, and they put skeletons up there, and they kind of place them around the ship, and there's about 20 of them, so it sort of makes sense. But again, back for 2 months, that's you're just there. There's no, I mean, you're not gonna like go swim in the ocean on the way or anything. It's like pretty harrowing, pretty. It's amazing that more people didn't die getting over here. Like I learned the other day that on the Mayflower, the Pilgrims, they went from Plymouth, England, to Plymouth, Mass. Only one person died. I was figuring somebody, is gonna perish. All right, so let's do a little artillery lesson now and have fun doing that. So I'm going to light my cannon. We're going to light the cannon, and we're going to light the cannon with the fire stick. So I'm going to use a little modern thing. And it's a little bit lighter to get it going. But back in the day, let's pretend that maybe we're having, I'll go over here, I got to get out of the way. So maybe we're having a battle with a British. And we're a Spanish gun crew, which means we're in charge of this cannon. And I'll introduce you to the cannon. His name is Pablo. Kids from Tampa said, "Hey Bert, you ever named a cannon?" I said, "No, so let's name it." So we named it Pablo. So Pablo, he's got a mouth. It's also called the bore, just like in a rifle, the bore of a rifle. He's got a mouth. And then down the bottom of this barrel is called a breech. I think of it as Pablo's belt. Okay. And so in his mouth goes a cannonball. And then we'll move it to the ramrod down into his belly, and then it comes out. I don't know what the metaphor is there. Vomit? But anyway, so let's pretend that, the British are down there. This thing has a range of about 500 yards, and we've been having a skirmish with them this morning, leaking into the afternoon here. Imagine there's like 5 of us, and we all have an assignment to fire the cannon and get it ready to fire again. That's the key thing. So once I fire this thing, I'm in a pretend fire. Then I'll go through the motions that the crew would take to get it ready to fire again. So let's pretend that we took the stick, just a while ago, and we put it to this hole. There's a little hole there called the touch hole where I'm going to put some gunpowder here in a minute. And so there was a big explosion. Cannonball went down that way about 500 yards. So now the crew has to get ready quickly, and they do this in a minute or two. I'll just go through it deliberately. The first member of the gun crew would get something called a sponge. So now I want to make sure there aren't any embers left over from that explosion before I put gunpowder back in. So this was used to swab the barrel. They'd stick it in a pail of water and then just run it down the barrel and make sure it's cool. Then they'd clean it. So now it turns out there was something called wadding. It was like sometimes Spanish moss down here, other times coarse paper. They used it in muskets too. They'd cram this flammable material in with the round to seal it better, and when the explosion happens, there's just better compression. There's no air leaking around the round. It's like holding it in temporarily, but then it's supposed to burn off, and not all of it would. So they'd have to scrape that out. You can see it's got a lot of resin on it from all the firing. But back in the day, they're really going after any obstruction to the next round. So now it's clean and it's safe. And let's pretend that we're reloading about 1.5 pounds of gunpowder, which is what we need to send that cannonball about 500 yards. So they would get a sack to keep it dry. They would then put it in the mouth of Pablo, and just imagine a cannonball now, an orb of iron that goes in here too. And then we transfer the gunpowder and the cannonball down into the breech, down into its belly, using the ramrod, right? Everyone recognizes the ramrod. So let's imagine that we push that down there and we're ready to light it. So I'll go get some gunpowder. Put our fire stick here so you can see it just burns very reliably and slowly, creates a little ash on it.
Fire the cannon. Make sure you look at the cannon. Yeah, you see the cannon? It's gonna fire. Are you excited? Yeah. Make sure you look at it. Please do.
Okay, so I got a little funnel. I got my gunpowder.
Look at it.
And I'm going to pour a few ounces down that hole. So back today, I'm effectively creating cognac from juice. So we have to have some way of lighting what we just ran. So this is what they would do with it. So a few ounces down the touch hole and around the touch hole. It's almost like magic. And turns out it was kind of magical back in the day. When the Chinese came up with it in like the 9th century, in the 800s, there were supposedly some some Buddhists.
Like, when is he going to put the cannon?
With different organic materials, trying to find a way to prolong life. So it's kind of like a fountain of youth. And then I think it's really ironic if that's true, because they invented this stuff to try to prolong life. So it's, you know, really, it's only used in fireworks now, reenactments like this, but it really changed the way wars were fought. I mean, it's a lot worse having a musket ball or a cannonball coming at you than it is an arrow. All right, we're ready.
Look at, you're gonna miss it.
So what I'm going to do is, you might have heard earlier, I'm going to say fire in the hole. We have to alert everybody. And then I'll say fuego, and then I'll light. We'll get the British running for it.
Look at him, look at him.
You got the camera ready?
I'm trying to get both that and the reaction.
Okay. Fire in the hole! Fuego!
Woohoo!
Pretty good, huh?
That was good. That was
That
cool.
was the best shot of the day.
Say thank you.
You're welcome. It was great to see you all.
Likewise.
So hang around as long as you want. I mean, we're open at 5, and like if you want to go back in the old house, or I don't know if you noticed the watchtower. That's kind of cool. Great view. But take advantage of the restaurants. You get discounts there. They're right. You can walk to them from here. Other than that, be well, stay safe, enjoy St. Augustine. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, young sir. Appreciate it.